Dr. Langlois is heading out on the road for this edition of Your Pet's Health Tip of the Day. What's he got in store? Let's check in with him and find out.
Hello again, everybody. This is Dr. Langlois of the Pet Pantry of Lancaster County, coming to you on location from a wonderful hotel room here in State College, PA. I'm up here doing a little bit of teaching today, and as I was driving up, it got me to thinking of, there probably are some tips we can give out for people that want to take their dogs, cats, and other pets with them when they are traveling places. I don't have my buddy Lewis with me right now, but he does travel quite a bit with me, especially towards the end of the summer when I head up to Canada for another teaching stint. So we're going to give you a couple of tips just to make sure that your furry friend stays happy and healthy and hopefully as stress-free as possible when they're traveling with you on vacation to a friend's house, wherever. So if they're going to be gone for a couple of days, you definitely want to make sure that you take your pet's own supply of food, preferably some bottled water or water that you kind of fill in plastic jugs, just to make sure you have it on hand. You don't want to have to rely on potentially trying to find it wherever you end up going. And it's always good to have on hand in the unlikely event, and hopefully non-event, of a car breaking down or something like that. You definitely want to have their food and water there with them. You also want to make sure you have a supply of medication if your pet happens to be on any kind of medication. And if you're going to be gone for a period of time, you want to talk to your vet about getting enough medication for that period. You also want to try to make sure that you have basic medical records and your vet's contact information with you. So this way, in the event that you do need to take your pet to the vet in a different location, they at least have some idea of the history that's going on. Especially if this is a weekend or something like that, and the vet that you take them to cannot get in contact with your vet to get all of the medical history. So just ask your vet for a basic copy of medical records. It may not have to be the whole thing, maybe just a synopsis of exactly what's been going on with the pet. So that's really important to start. Some of our pets do tend to get a little bit of car sick when they are traveling. And this is something you can talk to your veterinarian about as well, as there are medications that are out there that can kind of help ease that and stop that motion sickness, vomiting that sometimes happens in the car. Things like Dramamine and Bonine. There's also some medications you can get from your vet, but you want to make sure that you talk to your vet first to make sure, one, you get the right type of over-the-counter medication if that's what you're going for, and two, that any medication that you may want to give or that your vet may recommend will not interact with any other medications your pet may currently be on. So it's really important not just to go ahead and get it. You want to make sure you talk to your vet first about that. Now, when you get your pet into the car, really you want to look at proper restraints. So you want to make sure that your cats are secured in carriers and that the carriers are secured in a way that they can't really slide around, because that's very, very unsettling to a cat, aside from even just being in the car a lot of times. You want to make sure that they are secure in an area, so this way, if you do hit a sharp turn or have to stop, the carrier is not going to go flying all over the place. With dogs, if you can, try to secure them in the back. They do make cute little doggy seat belts for them and things like that, but you really don't want them roaming free because they can potentially injure themselves, number one, and number two, can provide a distraction to you while driving, and then you both could end up injured, and we really don't want to have to see that happen as well. Another thing you definitely want to consider is making sure that your pet has current identification on it, and ideally this would be in the form of a microchip, and making sure that the information that's linked to the microchip is up to date. Pets, unfortunately, in weird situations can get scared, they can run away, and you want to make sure that you definitely at least have a collar on them with proper identification tags on it, but in the event that that gets lost or somehow slipped, really having a microchip for your pet if you're going to be traveling a lot really is the best way to go about making sure they are permanently identified and that they have a means of being identified so that they can get back to you. Really, with animals that run away, a lot of times it really is only the microchip that links them back to the owners, and hopefully a very, very happy ending. Along with that, you also want to make sure that you have a copy of your pet's current rabies certificate. Sometimes if you're traveling across state lines, or if you're like me who travels up to Canada every year, you are going to need that proof of rabies just to prove that your animal is up to date on rabies and is vaccinated. So make sure you have that with you as well. Now, when you start looking for wonderful places like this to potentially stay, if you're traveling for a long distance or even on a vacation, you're staying in a hotel room, you really want to do your research first and find hotels that are definitely pet friendly. TripAdvisor is very, very good for this. There's a whole bunch of other websites that are out there that really kind of give you a feel for how animal friendly a hotel or motel or resort may be. And you definitely want to do your research on that as well, because there are different rules. Some have no problems with the animals being free in the room when you're not there. Others require that they be crated. Others require that they not be in the room while housekeeping is in there. So you just really want to look around and see what kind of accommodations are out there and pre-plan that. You want to have all that stuff figured out so you know roughly where you're going to be. before having to just stop in the middle of the night or stop somewhere and then hopefully figure out if they're going to accept your pet or not. So now you've got everything all set to go, and the one bit of advice that I can give when you're on the road is you really do want to try to make frequent stops for your pet, especially if your dog happens to be older, maybe a little more arthritic. A lot of times riding in a car, unless you have a nice big back area where they can stretch out, it's an odd position for them a lot of times. And sometimes that can lead to some stiffness in the joints, and you want to be careful not to potentially cause them any kind of pain in their joints or anything like that. So by making frequent stops, letting them get out, stretch their legs, things like that, will kind of keep those joints limber and keep them feeling a little bit better. I have to do it with my own big boy Lewis now because he's getting up there and he has some hip dysplasia issues. So we have to stop a little more frequently just to let him out and stretch his legs and get those joints moving just as well as we can. In addition, you probably want to feed them maybe a small meal a couple of hours before leaving, and you really don't want to feed them a ton of food or water when you do make stops. A little bit of food here, a little bit of water there is okay, but if you really overload them or give them full meals while you're in the midst of traveling, you really do risk them potentially getting car sick and vomiting the water and the food up, and believe me, that's just a mess. I've had to go through it myself once with Lewis when I was traveling, and never again will I make that mistake. So those are just some basic tips. We hope everybody has a wonderful spring and summer season or wherever you're traveling with your pet, and we'll be back with other aspects of pet travel safety and things to remember if you're taking your pets to certain locations. But for right now, that is your On the Road Again Pet Health Tip of the Day.
As always, if you have any questions about travel safety for your pet, be sure to check out any of these fine websites. And as always, it's always best to contact your local and trusted veterinarian.